to be with us. We are conscious that lots of colleagues and friends are starting their summer vacations, so it's really fantastic to have this check-in before many folks go off on much deserved leave. This is our July edition of the Town Hall. We have the pleasure of meeting on a monthly, 6-weekly basis to check in and share intel and share ideas and updates in terms of this process through to a second Global Ministerial Conference on Ending Violence Against Children in Manila. And we have a very full and fabulous agenda to share with you today. I've popped the agenda in the chat, but essentially there's going to be quite a lot from our side today. Now, we always want to make sure there's time for discussion and contributions and questions. So as we do go through today, pop any questions or reflections in the chat, but also we'll make sure we've got a good break in between the kind of key agenda points so that we can have a discussion in the round. We're going to start off with an update from Rachel at UNICEF, who's going to give an update both in terms of the conference headlines and the conference logistics. So this is an opportunity to dive into a little bit of the detail in terms of the program and the shape of this second ministerial conference in Manila, and then for us to share with you some of those updates from a logistical perspective. We know you're all avidly thinking about hotel bookings and room bookings, and so we're going to try and share some of the practicalities there. We're then going to give you a bit of an update in terms of what's happening in the region. It's fantastic to see regional colleagues on the line today, and so we'll be doing a little bit of a look back in terms of what happened in South Asia, Southeast Asia, and Sabine will cover that off for us. And then over to Binta, our colleague from WHO in the Afro region, to talk about the brilliant gathering that's happening this week. And then we'll look forward to what's happening in the EMRO Middle East region next week. So that's an update from the regions. Cassia, my colleague at WHO, will then give an update on the sector dialogues and the satellite events. We know there's a lot of appetite and interest around both of those pieces, so we're really keen to update you on what's progressing and some of those opportunities for engagement moving forward. And then we'll wrap up with next steps from Sabine, just any kind of overarching pieces that we think would be useful to share. But as I say, if you've got comments, reflections, thoughts, please do put them in the chat. We'll get to them as we can, and then we'll have a good break in between each segment, so there's a lot of time for us to discuss amongst ourselves. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Rachel. Thanks so much, Rachel.
Hi everyone. Is someone sharing from your side on the presentation? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll share.
Thanks, Shabir. So we have, and scary to think, 4 months to go to the second ministerial conference. Next slide, please. And as you can imagine, it's all full steam ahead for the 18th and 19th of November, with, of course, the satellite events happening the 2 days before on the 16th and 17th. We're really far advanced now with the agenda. We've had a huge amount of feedback from partners across the globe, from also the Program Steering Committee and the Friends of the Conference. And these are really the objectives: to share evidence-driven solutions, to ensure an inclusive participation with the recognition that ending violence against children is a shared accountability across sectors, and also capitalizing on the fact that it's the Department of Health that is the main host of the conference in Manila. So really promoting and spotlighting that shared accountability, but also with CSOs, academia, and youth, and highlight successes and progress from the last conference, but also really mobilize ambition and pledges that will take this agenda forward. Next slide, please. In terms of the focus, the first conference was rightly holistic of all different types of issues impacting violence through the evidence, the data, prevention, response. And given that the ambition is to have this conference every 2 years, the idea of this conference is to be more targeted and to deep dive on prevention, focusing on the 3 breakthrough investments that were identified in 2024: parent and caregiver support, safe and enabling schools, and also the child-friendly response systems, but with this time a non-exclusive focus, but a spotlight on the role of the health sector. The other theme of the conference is ending violence in times of escalating threats. And 2 big escalating threats are tech-facilitated harm and then humanitarian and climate context. So how do we use those breakthroughs to prevent violence in the face of escalating harms, and how do we use them to break the cycles of violence and address the intersections of violence against children and women. And the two big overarching themes are also, how do we finance it? We can have the commitments, but unless you have public finance and private finance, you're not going to make the progress that we all want to see. And the other overarching theme is, in the face of the erosion of multilateralism, to really showcase the power of regional bodies and regional leadership. And we're going to hear about one such progress by the AU later on in this meeting. Next slide, please. In terms of the agenda, and I won't go through this in detail, but we will have the big opening piece where we will set the overarching themes, and then we'll set the themes in terms of ending violence against children in times of escalating threats. So what's the issue? Why is it urgent? What can be done? Why should action be taken? And then the call to action from children, youth, and survivor delegates from the outcomes from the pre-convening. After the coffee break, we have the first plenary, where the spotlight is on the health sector and its role in prevention and response as part of a multi-sectoral approach to ending violence. Then we look at the power of partnerships, with a spotlight on youth and young people-led solutions and partnerships with CSO, FBOs, and the private sector. You'll see throughout the agenda that there's space for countries to pledge and also to share progress. After the lunch break, we'll focus on the first parallel sessions, which is scaling prevention through the 3 breakthroughs. So you see parent and caregiver support, with a focus on the critical protective factor they play, safe and enabling schools, the multi-sectoral approach to prevention and response, and then breaking the cycle of violence or addressing the intersections. Then we will showcase the power of global movements before having the second pledging session. Next slide, please. On day 2, we turn it over to listen to the perspectives and recommendations of children, young people, and survivors, both those in the room, but also perspectives from those who couldn't attend from around the world. We will then have our second plenary of financing a violence-free future, on creation of public finance space, have the next pledging session, and then after that we will focus on the parallel sessions of violence prevention in the face of escalating threats, the critical role of mental health in violence prevention, tech-facilitated abuse, prevention of violence and harmful practices in times of crisis, and looking at when peers are perpetrators. Then after the lunch, we'll have a chance to split up into regional convenings to look at the power of regional bodies and sharing between countries in each region, and a parallel session for those that don't associate themselves with a region in the future of violence prevention and response. We then move on to the last plenary of the power of regional bodies before the final pledging session, and then turning over to children, young people, and survivors to close. Next slide, please. Would you like me to take this, or should I hand back to you, Sabine? You're on mute, Sabine.
Sorry. Cassia, maybe do you want to walk through this?
I'll give an update about the satellite events later, so I think we can skip it for now.
Okay.
And just also to say, we're always looking for proposals and recommendations. We've got really good ones coming in. I'll drop the link in the chat, but if you have any recommendations for countries to showcase, recommended compelling speakers or experts, please do let us know. This is really a collaborative effort to get the best possible agenda. Thank you.
Should I say something about the national preparatory sessions, or do you want to continue, Rachel?
Yeah, I can continue if you like. So we, a huge feature of last time, as most of you know, was the pledging process, and countries are going to be encouraged to do this again. So one is they're going to be asked to review the pledges that they've made, a report on the progress through the progress reporter, and this will be consolidated to an overall picture of the progress that's made. But they're also going to be asked to strengthen the pledges, or those that didn't attend last time, to look at pledges that they can make afresh. Instead of just making this in isolation, they're being invited to have a preparatory process that's made up of a consultative preparatory session. not only should this involve different ministries and different agencies, but also NGOs, children, young people, survivors, and other key actors. We recognize that a lot of countries and regions are in the process or have carried out consultative process, so they may want to draw on this, but it would be great if they could have a dedicated session to come up with pledges and the progress that they would like to showcase, as well as deepen pledges and link them to financial commitments to ensure that they can be implemented. We have a group of countries that are going to receive some enhanced support, technical and financial support. And these countries, we have the almost final list that we're working with the countries of. And these countries will, a lot of them, at least half of them, are new countries who are going to come and pledge and attend, who did not come to Bogota. Next slide, please. Back to you guys.
Thanks so much, Rachel. We just want to recognise Rachel for her leadership that she's been doing on bringing together the programme. We've very much had this be an open process, and hopefully you all feel as if you've had an opportunity to feed in your thoughts and your recommendations. I also know that Rachel has given that particular presentation and slide deck maybe 20 times. So really thankful for you sharing that again in the session today, Rachel. I wanted to pause just for a minute or two to see whether anyone's got any particular points they wanted to raise in relation to any of these points before we move on to a bit of an update on the regional efforts. So any thoughts or questions? I can see a couple of comments have just come in on the chat. There's a question from Jason around the cohort of countries that might get enhanced support. And then Rachel, thanks Rachel, has put in the form that gives you a bit of a chance to recommend speakers. Rachel's saying we're very happy to share that list of 30 or so countries once final agreement has been reached, and we hope that will be in the coming weeks. But of course, every government of 194 countries of the world is invited and encouraged to participate. And frankly, there are very many who are still priorities, but actually perhaps don't need that additional bit of that modest financial support in terms of their participation. So we're really encouraging every government to attend, and in fact every government to attend with a new updated concrete pledge. Before we hand on to Sabine, who's just going to kickstart our feedback on the regional efforts that are underway, we did just want to mention, because it may have come to many of your attention this morning, that we're sad to confirm that Secretary Ted Herbosa of the Philippines has actually resigned. We understand this is because of a health issue, and we very much wish him a speedy recovery. I think many of you will know he has been a real figurehead for decades, in fact, in terms of child protection efforts in the Philippines, and has been a very central figure behind the idea of Manila hosting this second ministerial conference. So we just wanted to flag that. We hope that it's temporary. We know it's a health concern, and we wanted to kind of recognise his leadership and send him our well wishes. And of course, we'll keep you posted as things continue to move forward with pace, but just wanted to flag that in case anyone had seen that in the news today or in recent days. And now I'll pass over to Sabine for a bit of an update on Southeast Asia, and then over to Binta on Afro. Thanks, Sabine.
Yeah, thank you, Helen. Sorry, I wasn't sure I was on. I had my microphone on. So we're, as Rachel was saying, the most important part of this ministerial conference is really all the preparatory work going into it. And I have to say, Rachel presented the program, and it's been such a coalition and coordination among so many partners to bring this together and to come to the program that Rachel presented. And similarly, you'll see when Cassia presents on the satellite events, it's just amazing to see the buy-in from the field. It feels like there's just this huge, like we're vacuum that's being filled, and it's really great to see everybody coordinating also so nicely. Hasn't been any animosity between organizations or people, so huge thanks, and let's keep it going this way for the next 5 months. So similarly, I was last month in Sri Lanka, where the Asian group, along with UNICEF and WHO and all Asian partners, really came together to organize convening for the Southeast Asian region. There were 8 countries in that region, and all the countries updated over 3 days on the incredible progress that they've been making. And 2 additional countries that had not made pledges, Bangladesh and Maldives, presented the pledges that they will be presenting in Manila. And the only country that wasn't present was India, which is a country that we're going to work hard on collectively. In fact, this morning we had a long call about how we can really bring the government of India on board to make pledge and to be in Manila. So it was a really fascinating 3 days, and there were young people, survivors, children. The SRSG was there, obviously UNICEF and WHO, and really great government representation. We have Binta online who's going to be presenting on what's happening in the African region. And then maybe I'll just take the mic right now, Helen, to say a few words about the Middle East. So in the Middle East on Monday, 20th of July, we have a meeting of online of the ministers that are involved, or maybe not ministerial level, but just the level below, that are involved in ending violence against children. It's a 3-hour convening where we'll be preparing for the Manila conference. So we'll be presenting globally where we are at and seeing if we can get more countries to make pledges and how they can do that. And then the week after, we have 3 days of meetings, similar, is same with the Middle East, to discuss in groups of much smaller, 5 countries, seeing how we can really bring the Middle East countries on board in advance to Manila. So Southeast Asia and the Middle East is very well covered. We'd also discussed in Southeast Asia holding a second meeting possibly in September or October, to bring ministers of health more on board and to bring the other countries from the Southeast Asia region more fully on board that are not part of those 8 initial countries. So Southeast Asia and Middle East are moving forward at full speed. We're here right now from Africa. For the Americas, we're waiting to hear back. There's been discussions about it being hosted either by Mexico or Brazil to hold a pre-ministerial conference. And then Europe, we're still looking for anybody who can carry that baton, because unfortunately our WHO country office or region office has been cut quite considerably on the EVAC agenda. But so we're hoping either for a member state to pick it up or for a partner to pick up the Euro convening. But so yeah, these pre-ministerial conference regional convenings are really important and really helping move forward. And with that, I'll hand over to Binta to give an update on everything going on in Africa.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the floor, Sabine. Now I have my camera on. I'm going to update for Africa. As Sabine said, I'm the regional advisor for the African region. So we've been working since last year. Last year, there was the Arise 1 in November, where we took stock of the progress 1 year after Bogota. And since then, we've been really working very closely with UNICEF and also ACPF on keeping that momentum towards now Manila. So that's been going well, and the AU has picked up on the momentum, and we are planning with them a Arise 2 that will be taking place next week. Actually, this week on the 16th to 17th. We'll have in-person participation of about 20 African countries, where we will develop the African position on ending violence against children. So this is really a very strong political commitment, considering the AU standing in Africa, and having those countries validate this common African position that will then be presented in Manila is, I think, really showing the importance of the issue in the African region. We built the common African position on many pillars that are the focus also of Manila, but also include, the leadership, the financing, of course, the different technical pillars. So I think this is really the flagship for the African region, to have the African Union commit to this common African position. So that's one. The second is that we are also with UNICEF working very closely with countries already in preparing for strengthening either the existing pledges and developing new pledges. So the country level work has begun in a few of the countries, and it just needs to be accelerated and further supported so that the commitments are stronger once we get to Manila. And we already see countries achieving what they had promised in Bogota in view of Manila. We have that in Uganda, we have that in Ethiopia as well. So I think this is really a very positive signs. We have a community of practice through a WhatsApp group. It looks like very easy, but actually it has a lot of impact on getting countries almost to compete in the best practices. So it's been a very, very strong partnership with UNICEF and also with other partners, ACPF and other NGOs working in this field. And I think that's really the ingredient, the secret ingredient to supporting countries effectively is to come together. So I think that's all I have right now as an update. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sabine. Thank you so much, Binta. I really just want to recognise the work that's being done through the teams working across the African continent. To have that common African position, I think is incredible. And I actually think is also a real reflection of that journey from the first ministerial. Those of us that were in Bogota or worked towards Bogota will remember that actually the African region were the best represented and the most significant and substantive pledge makers. So I think it's really fantastic to see out of Bogota where they now come together behind this collective common position. I think absolute kudos to everyone working on it, and it just sets a strong precedent and something to build from. So fantastic to hear. And just to reiterate Sabine's point, if we have any colleagues in the European region who would be particularly keen to think about how we can encourage member states to play their role, you'll remember perhaps also that Europe was not a particularly well represented region at the first ministerial conference, either in terms of participation or pledges made. And we think that's a real, it's kind of doesn't do service to the work that's being done in European member states, both their role domestically and some of their roles in terms of ODA and overseas aid and donor work. So would love to think about if there's any efforts we can play there. I'm just going to pause for a second to see if there's any more questions. I did see a couple of questions in the chat around, there's a question about whether in relation to the agenda in Manila, whether there's room for kind of short film screenings. We're thinking really hard about the kind of the high production value, the kind of razzmatazz of the ministerial as well, and really thinking about the rich content that we can be bringing in alongside the core content of the ministerial. So we are thinking about different elements we can introduce. We can't make any promises, it's a very tight schedule, but certainly in and around the conference venue, we're keen to think about how to have that be as engaging as possible. So if you do have content that you would want to be potentially suggesting, then do share. No promises, but we can certainly look at that. And I did see also a question just in terms of the national preparatory sessions, which Rachel answered very well. There will be guidance that's just being finalised in terms of national preparatory sessions that will be sent to all governments, and that will be available on our website, which we'll mention later on in the call today. Okay, I think I'm now handing over to Cassia, who has been doing a phenomenal job. I think many of you have been in touch with her on a near daily basis regarding the satellite events. So that's the 2 days preceding the official ministerial conference. So the 16th and 17th of November is dedicated to satellite events. You'll remember that we've had over 50 requests and applications to host satellite events. So Cassie's been doing a phenomenal job in kind of bringing all of that piece together. She's going to update us on those satellite events and also on some of the sector dialogues that I know a number of you have been engaged with these recent weeks. Over to you, Cassia.
Hi, thanks, Helen. Hi, everyone. Just a quick update on the satellite events. I'll just share my screen very quickly. Can you see it?
Not just yet. We can now. Thanks, Cassia.
Okay. So, well, as Helen was saying, the satellite events will take place in the 2 days preceding the Global Ministerial Conference, so the 16th and the 17th of November. And just to remind, what are they? They are independently organized events organized by partners, and also an opportunity for government funders, youth and child-led groups, survivors, national and international organizations to come together, convene around priority themes, deepen technical discussions, and strengthen their partnership. We have received now, as of today, more than 57 expressions of interest to organize satellite events. And partners are being encouraged to align their events under thematic umbrellas or clusters to increase impact and promote coherence, but most importantly, to facilitate the logistics of booking rooms in the main hotel, which is also the conference venue. So there's a challenge with room booking in the Marriott Hotel. They don't book per hour, they just book the full day. So we're really trying to bring together many satellite events so they can book the day and then organize themselves throughout the day and the agenda. But also it's nice just to have coherence in the agenda. If anyone is interested in a specific topic, it knows where those sessions are taking place, and there's like a nice flow between one session to the other. So this is not mandatory to be part of a cluster. So all partners have the choice between holding their event independently of any cluster or in any chosen venue as well. It doesn't have to be at the Marriott, it could be at any place in Manila. We are just doing this to facilitate logistics, because going from one place to the other in Manila might be a bit challenging. So we're just trying to prioritize hotels that are in the region, either the Marriott or nearby hotels. So in order to work with these clusters, we have identified volunteer and cluster leads to help us coordinate this cluster. So reach out to the event organizers within the cluster and confirm their interest in going ahead as part of the cluster, and also reaching out to the hotel to confirm room booking costs and how to share those costs, etc. So we currently have, as you can see in the screen, 11 different clusters, and we are working closely with both the cluster leads, but also with lovely partners on the ground who are supporting us, Bernie and Melissa. I don't know if they're online. And also working with the hotel representatives to confirm all the events, the room booking, etc. We have shared already an information node and satellite events Q&A document and venue options with all partners who submitted interest in organizing satellite events. And we also held an information session with everyone and the hotel representatives as well. But we do hope to upload updated information on the conference website in the next days. So this will be a way to keep everyone on the same page with updated information, because of course a lot of information that we're shared in the information note has already changed. So we'll hope to keep everything updated on the website. And then and on the website, you'll also have information on the cluster leads and contacts of them or if anyone else would like to reach out to them. There's still a lot of moving pieces, as you can see. So sessions that are merging, sessions that are being confirmed, new expressions of interest to organize satellite events. So please bear with us as we're building this. And if you have any specific question, any urgent question, please reach out to me. I'll share my email on the chat soon. So then as soon as all confirmed satellite events will be posted on the website, and then independently if they are part of the cluster or not, all satellite events will be posted on the website. So just to summarize, satellite events are independently organized, funded and managed by the host organizations, but an official program of satellite events will be shared on the conference website and disseminated to all participants of the conference. And I just want to finalize thanking all partners that have submitted expressions of interest. Your work and commitment is really what makes this conference such an important and special moment for this field and for all participants of the conference. So you can see here in the slide that I'm sharing the information, the contact leads for each cluster. If you need to reach out to anyone, please write down and write an email. Or if you have a more general question, just please reach out to me. Then on the sector dialogues, just a quick introduction to the sector dialogues. So the sector dialogues are a series of sector conversations in preparation for Manila. So they offer a moment of reflection on what has progressed since Bogota and how should the sector coordinate and prepare for Manila in terms of what are the main asks and how to support country partners in progressing the agenda of that specific sector, as well as advocating for pledges and etc. So WHO and UNICEF proposed the series, but the dialogues themselves are being led by different partners who are also managing the meetings, the invitations, and the discussion. If you would like to follow the discussion of any specific sector, you can reach out to these focal points that are available here on on the slide, and we do hope to follow how each one of these sectors are organizing themselves in preparation to Manila, and share a bit more of information on the website as soon as we have it. That's it from my side. I don't know if there's any questions. I'll stop sharing now.
Thanks
Cassia,
so
there
much.
was a
Oh,
sorry, there was a question in the chat, Cassia, about whether the date 16th and 17th for the different clusters, satellite events are confirmed now.
Yeah, in as much as the rooms are being booked, so most of the rooms still don't have like contract signs. They are in discussion, but we're following the room allocation and hence the date of the satellite of the clusters, right? So if a cluster is 2 days, it will obviously be on the 16th and the 17th. But if it's just one day, then these specific clusters are choosing either the 16th or the 17th, and we're trying to keep track of that information. So the information that I shared is updated as of today. Obviously, this could still change, but this is the situation that we have currently.
wonderful. Thanks so much, Cassia. And hopefully that covers off that question. There will be lots of moving parts, but as Cassia said, I think the message from our side is we're just so encouraged and overwhelmed with the amount of energy and appetite there is towards this second ministerial conference. And we're hopeful that all of the efforts that we're putting into the program and the agenda and the satellite events, we can push through that same degree of energy in encouraging member states to attend and member states to come with strong and significant pledges for children. So that's the next stage that we move into. There is a quick question, Cassia, around whether the application for satellite events is still open. We did have a notional deadline of the 30th of May, but I don't know if you want to just speak to that briefly, Cassia, in terms of the fluidity around that.
Yeah, we had this deadline just to help us organize and coordinate everything, the next steps that we had to coordinate. But obviously, we'll try to be as inclusive as possible. So if you still want to organize a satellite event, there's two ways. You can either reach out to a cluster lead. The information will be on the website, as I said, and see if the session that you would like to organize aligns with that cluster, with that specific cluster, if there's still space in the cluster, or if there's still space in a specific session that you could partner with. So there's this option. And then if you want to organize independently and organize a satellite event, we're also happy to add your satellite event to the website as an official satellite event once you have booked a room and confirmed the event. So yeah, so in short, yes. We'll just have to figure out which way to move in order to confirm the event. But yeah, we're trying to accommodate all expressions of interest. Please reach out to us. I'll share my email on the chat right now.
Thanks so much, Cassie. A phenomenal job there. And actually, that might be a good segue into a very practical point about the location for the ministerial. As Cassie said, we've been trying hard to make this as cost effective and concentrated as possible with the satellite events so that folks can really, you've got as many people in the audience focused on your issue. But we do understand that for some, it won't be possible to utilize the Marriott where the ministerial conference is taking place. Sabine, I wonder if you want to, I'm going to hand back over to you for a few kind of other agenda points, but I wonder if you want to start just with that slide that shows the variety of hotels that are in the vicinity of the Marriott. So the Marriott Hotel is where the ministerial conference is taking place. We understand it's in an area called Newport City, and in the vicinity of the Marriott Hotel, there are about 8 other hotels, but there's this selection that you can see on the screen at the moment that we're trying to negotiate more cost-effective pricing on. Sabine, shall I hand across to you for this point and the others?
Yeah, so this is the micro point. As Helen and Cassie have been saying, these are other hotels where satellite events can take place or can happen. But this is micro. I just want to zoom out, helicopter view again. And as you will have noticed, we're really trying to move forward, I think, on 3 big fronts. One is the national preparatory session, so getting the governments fully engaged. And not just the 40, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, my phone ringing. So it's not just the 40 countries that are countries that are new to this initiative that we want to bring on board, but all countries. We want those that were there, those that weren't there to come and be well prepared. So that's the national preparatory session. The second big stream is getting the sectors. We've moved a long way on online harms, on parenting, on school-based interventions, on the intersection between violence against women and violence against children, on humanitarian. So we're trying to really boil down now where, as a sector, do the different sectors want to go, the different communities of practice. So we have the government, and then we have the sector dialogues, and then of course the full program, which will be so important to keep the discussion moving and to celebrate the pledges. So that's just to remind us the big picture. I'll just stop this screen share. You'll receive the presentation, and this will all be on the website shortly. I also wanted to update on the invitations. So, as Helen mentioned, unfortunately, Dr. Herbosa has had to retire early because of actually just a knee operation, thankfully. So that's good news, and we wish him well. But the new Minister of Health has already been appointed today, and so we're hoping that the invitations from member states will be going out. We're still hoping this week or next week because they're basically sitting with Ministry of Foreign Affairs ready to go. There's different two other tracks for invitees. So most of you on this call will receive an invitation, which is signed by WHO and UNICEF, and we're hoping that those will go out also end of this week or maybe early next week. So that's all kind of core partners. We have about 350 core partners that we hope will be in Manila. So you'll be receiving a targeted invitation. And then there will be a registration platform where you will be asked to register yourself. But also, if you know of a local NGO in Botswana or in Santiago or in Bangladesh that would really like, that should be present, or that you would think that your organization could accompany to participate, then you can also register them, or they can register themselves. And then we'll, as UNICEF and WHO, will check, like, do we know them? Is it okay? And then do a very quick due diligence and be able to bring them on board. So just to recap, those are the three invitation streams. One is through government, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. One is through targeted invitation letters. And then the third one is through a kind of online open registration, which we will be doing due diligence of. The website will be up tomorrow, which is really good news. It's taken us a while to agree on the branding, to agree on the content. We're hoping that we'll have the version that Rachel just presented of the program will be up, the information on the satellite events that Cassia presented, on the sectoral dialogues. So as much as possible, we'll be feeding everything on there as quickly as possible to be as transparent as possible. And that's also where the registration platform will be sitting, hopefully by next week. So that's it on the website of things. We're developing some comms assets as well, so that people can include it in the signatures. And until now, it's been such a collaborative and coordinated response. And I think if we can continue doing that, that people start seeing that we have the same signature and that we're all working towards a common goal over the next 4 months, that will be super valuable. And so I've covered invitations, website comms, and the hotels. I think that's it, unless I'm missing anything, Helen.
No, that's great. Thanks, Sabine. And there's just a few great questions and a quick call to action for us in the chat. So there's a question from Vicky around whether it will be possible to make 100% online. So you say side event, I'm assuming satellite event. So, I mean, that maybe is a question for Cassia. Is there potential opportunity to have a fully online satellite event and have that registered as one of the cohort of events across the satellite events program?
Yeah, I remember in Bogota we had 1 or 2 events like that they were completely online and ahead of the main of the 2 main days of satellite events. So I think we could accommodate. We're obviously not focusing too much energy on that call, but we can certainly accommodate within the list of official satellite events.
Thanks, Cassia. And of course, that our aim is to be as inclusive as possible. So the option is absolutely there. A really interesting question from Josiane around the average number of pledges put forward per country. Some had tens of pledges. Some had one gloriously rich pledge. So I think, we can data mine as much as is useful, and actually you can see all of the pledges that were made on the pledge platform. We'll put the link back in the chat. We can give you an average, but I don't know that it necessarily says all that much. Our real aspiration is probably for fewer, bigger. And really, it's about how specific they can be. Can these pledges be smart? Can we be clear on the budget that's associated with them? Can we be clear on target beneficiaries? Can we be clear on what progress looks like, the milestones towards delivery? Can we be clear on an accountability mechanism? So certainly we can offer a bit by way of average number of pledges made, and you can kind of play around with that on the website yourself. But fair to say, some with just one pledge, some with upwards of kind of 12, 15 pledges. So I wouldn't know the number off the top of my head. I'm looking to Sabine or Cassia, but I think really we're looking for clear, concrete, specific costed deliverable pledges. That's kind of the essence of what we're looking to there. I saw a quick note from Jen just to flag, and I think this is really important as we're talking about satellite events. We're really thrilled this year. There will be a Youth and Survivor Summit taking place in advance of the ministerial conference. It's starting on the Sunday, so that's actually going to be starting on, I think it's the 15th, Sunday the 15th and Monday the 16th. And that means that young people and survivors and children will be able to participate in their own standalone summit and also in the satellite events and in the main body of the programme. I have no doubt that there will be some brilliant materials and information around that Youth and Survivor Summit coming out really quite soon. So we'll look forward to hearing more about that and kind of celebrating the wins and the calls to action from children, young people and survivors. Let's see if any other questions have come in. Good. Here's a really interesting question. Are we expecting the website to be updated again before Manila on pledge progress? So good, really good question. And you might remember that last year, before the first anniversary, we encouraged governments to update us on the pledge platform on the progress of their pledges. We're asking them to do the same again. We've asked that by the 30th of September this year, they update on the progress that has been made on the pledge that was submitted in Bogota, so close to 2 years ago. We're asking for them to do that again by the 30th of September and simultaneously be developing their new concrete additional pledge. The hope is that during that month of October, we and colleagues can really kind of mine that data and mine those progress updates so that we can see those real kind of success stories that we want to profile. And of course, there will be opportunities for member states to profile any outstanding progress that they've made in Manila. But we do want to say, yes, this is about celebrating progress, but it's also about the need and the urgency to commit more and better for children affected by violence. Any other?
Helen, can I just jump in there? I see there's
Sure.
a few questions. There's one question for the Brave movement. Maybe you can just look in the chat and feel free to take the mic and answer. There's another question about children's engagement. So as Helen said, they've been really smart. The youth movement are doing it on Sunday and Monday so that they can make sure that the young people are engaged throughout the other sessions as well on Monday and Tuesday. And there will also be children. Yes, so we're now a couple of things that we're working on, in addition to everything we're doing, is to make sure that children are properly represented and really not just kind of standing on the sidelines or that they get one session, but they're really part of the discussions in satellite events, part of the program, so that and that they come really well prepared and kind of enabled to genuinely participate in the discussion. So yes, Roberta, the answer to your question is they will be participating in the young people's and in the satellite events. Two other areas that we're focusing on is faith movements. We are hoping to get faith leaders. We realize more and more how faith leaders can play such an important role in ending violence against children. So we're pushing for that. And huge thanks to Arigato International, who is also driving that. And then the third one is parliamentarians. So we're hoping to get parliamentarians. It could be that they're just health-related parliamentarians, but we're trying to get more general. But it's a heavy lift, but we're in contact with the Health Parliamentarian Union and the International Parliamentarian Union to see if we can get some parliamentarians in Bogota and have a satellite event for parliamentarians and by parliamentarians.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Sabine, for catching the bulls. I absolutely didn't know. As you can see, we're trying our hardest to be as representative as possible, thinking about all those forces that can help to build the climate and encourage success at the ministerial conference. From our side, I think that's all the agenda points covered. If anyone else has got any thoughts, reflections, questions, do let us know either in the chat, or please just feel free to pop your mic on, pop your camera on. It's a super open conversation. Give it a minute or two. And if
Hi.
not, oh yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi. I would like to just come in here. I had also posted a question in the chat group, and being in India and looking at the circumstances and the recent developments also around prevention of violence against children and prevention of a large number of suicides. So in India, the Supreme Court of India has recently issued a 15-point action plan, and which the government of India has to implement through all its states. So there is a new, I would say, a point of concern currently on which I feel if India has to be engaged more proactively, because as I see last time India was not there, Helen, you had mentioned. So I feel it is a good time point and a segue. It has happened very recently in July, after which I would share that on the chat group here, the notification of the government, which has gone to all the state governments. So then, in wake of this, my question was actually that what are the current efforts that are being put in? Like, are there any specific leverages in India that we think will help to come, like at least India to come at least at the discussion table? And especially the ministerial conference. So I'll just stop here. So this is the larger context in which I asked the question. Yeah.
Lata, thanks. I'm just going to jump in, Helen. I hope you
Yeah,
don't mind.
please.
We just came off of an hour call this morning about how we can best engage India, because I think there's, and I'm going to be very transparent about this. Some countries don't like the word ending violence against children. They don't like the concept. They want to focus on what they are doing, like parent and caregiver support, school-based interventions. And if you see countries like India, they also do some really wonderful work. I mean, the Dream a Dream project in India is huge, and the parenting support, the digital harms that they're engaging in. And so I think we have to be very careful and strategic in seeing what's the best way to message this, how do we slowly bring them along so that they come. And I'm going to share with you now in the chat, if that's okay, the contact information of the WHO country office and the UNICEF country office. And I suggest you reach out to them, because I think if they're already literally have a 3-page strategy on how they want to engage carefully and smartly. And so it's better to kind of funnel it through them rather than everybody going to the Indian government and the Indian government getting annoyed and saying, well, we're pulling out, we're not coming. So if I'll put that information in the chat now, and I hope it answers your question.
Thanks so much, Sabine, and great point, Hemlata. Anything we can do to have the Indian government engaged would be phenomenally important. There's a good question from Victor in Thailand around expected representation from law enforcement and national human rights commissions in the main program and in the preceding satellite events. So we have an opportunity and a challenge on our hands, friends, which is that once the invitations are sent, they're sent from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Manila to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the respective 194 governments. Typically, as we know, that invitation will land on the desk of a minister or Ministry of Social Affairs, Social Welfare, Social Development. If we think there are incredible ministers or ministries of, for example, justice, law enforcement, human rights, that should be part of this conversation at national level and at international level, this is the work that we need to do as a collective to ensure that there's a more diverse representation of ministers and delegations. It is difficult. We understand that the vast majority of government delegations will only come with one figurehead minister, and that often sits with social affairs and social development. But we're working hard behind the scenes to identify those member states where actually the leadership is being shown through a different department, be it justice or education or technology or health. And so if you do have particular insights into governments, or maybe there's a particular figurehead in a government that you think is doing incredible work on this agenda, it would be really useful for us to have that intel, because we can potentially try and build that into the process around the invitations over the coming months. So I'm sorry that doesn't wholeheartedly answer your point on that front. We do understand that there is a submission for a satellite event that will be dedicated to justice and children in the justice system, which is phenomenally important. We're really, really pleased to see that, and would be keen to see more, actually. If you are working with in a justice setting, if you're working in a human rights setting, and you have a suggestion for a group of actors that can come together and put a proposition in as a satellite event, we'd love to see that. We do think actually it's an underrepresented component of the satellite event and the plenary agenda at the moment. So we really would encourage that and would welcome those submissions. There's a question to Jen. She's answered already at the Brave movement around the Global Survivor Council. You may remember there was a Global Survivor Council that was brought together by the Brave movement for Bogota, which was incredibly important and influential. So fantastic to see that the members will be announced very soon. And a question from Alison around whether it's the International Parliamentary Network for Education that's already involved. In fact, the group that we have been engaging with is a group called Unite. So that's the International Parliamentary Union on Global Health. But it's a very good question about whether the International Parliamentary Network for Education is already involved. I'm not aware, but they might be, and I could definitely defer to some colleagues that work more firmly on education to answer on that point. And I think that might be all of the questions, unless anyone's got a burning point or question or suggestion. Sophia?
Hi, Helen. Thanks very much. And thanks for all the information shared today. It's super helpful. I just had a quick question. So I recall that for the ministerial conference in 2024, you were really very transparent and helpful with sharing the list of confirmed governments for the ministerial. Obviously, I'm kind of looking ahead a little bit since the invites haven't gone out yet, but it'd be great to get a sense of whether you can share these or will be sharing these again this year. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sophia. We haven't actually had a conversation on that as of yet as the co-host group, and as you say, that will very much come after the invitations are sent. We are going to push back the deadline for government registration slightly, just to account for this slight time lag that we've got. But the hope, of course, is that we can be as transparent as we were for Bogota, and we really recognise that transparency is really critical in enabling us to all work together in a collective and coordinated way. So we will definitely do our best, but we just haven't had the detail of that conversation yet. Thanks so much, Sophia. Okay, I think that rounds us off, unless there's any further questions or comments. Thank you so much for your time and your energy today, colleagues, and everything you're doing in the interim. We really, really value this. It's a true collective effort, and we look forward to speaking with you at the next town hall. I don't have the date to mind, but what we will do, we had sent the option to register at the start of the year, and we understand there have been some challenges with that. So you'll notice that we do send a reminder to the full mailing list, typically the week before the next town hall. So expect to hear from us very soon. Stay well, take a break if you get a chance, and thanks again so much for your partnership and leadership on this agenda. Bye all.